We danced for 7 minutes, yeah. It's a 7-minute sequence and we did it, I can't think how many times. Maybe 100. Oh goodness, this is so recent. I'm so much older. Hello, I'm Tom Hiddleston, and today I'm going to be watching some scenes from throughout my career. What was that quote? Life is something you live forwards, but it only makes sense when you look at it backwards. So maybe it'll make sense. Let's hope. What am I?
You're my son.
What more than that? This changed my life, this film. No two ways about it. It's, in many ways, it's defined huge chapters of my life. It's been a role of such complexity and range that it's never felt the same. He's a boundary crosser, he's a shapeshifter. He's this mercurial element of unpredictability and chaos that's also enormous fun. But this scene, as I've always looked back at this scene with enormous poignancy and gratitude, because it's very unusual that films feel momentous. I was very aware of its significance as I approached it. And so was Kenneth Branagh, and so was Anthony Hopkins. I couldn't believe that I was in such a position of privilege and good fortune that I was working with these two greats. What was so sweet, and I may have never said this before, was they were so delighted to be working with each other, but so embarrassed about telling each other that they told me. So Kenneth Branagh would come up to me and go, "Can you believe we're working with Anthony Hopkins? Look at him go. He's just the most majestic actor. I've always wanted to work with him." And then he'd go off and talk to the crew and position the camera. And then Anthony Hopkins would come up to me and go, "Hey, Kenneth Branagh, he's pretty amazing, isn't he? Pretty impressive guy."
Why would you take me?
You were an innocent child.
No, you took me for a purpose. What was it? Tell me!
He was so generous and so kind to me. And we had sort of just met, and the professional requirement was to kind of throwing the emotional kitchen sink at each other. And that takes great trust and great connection and intimacy. And he recognized I was 29 years old, and I was, you know, this is my first big film, and I'd only really met Anthony Hopkins in the read-through and a little bit in rehearsal. But I knew from the screenplay that this was a completely transformative moment in the film, and certainly the most transformative moment for Loki as a character. And it became and remains the cornerstone of the whole characterization for me, because Loki is an antagonist. I mean, it's amazing to look at it now. What makes me smile looking at it is just remembering how, obviously this is a scene with the whole group on this expedition, and we were all there in this valley, which the production design was amazing with all these old bones in it, but there was no skullcrawler, this sort of giant four-legged monster, trying to synchronize our imaginations about where it was and how close it was and how dangerous it was. Just imagining something is there that isn't there. There was a poor guy behind the rock who was like trying to roll this thing, and it kept rolling too far, and then it rolled and it hit my foot, and I remember doing like so many resets. Yeah, he was bowling and he was kind of missing his mark every time. So we just this repetition of looking horrified over and over and over, like, roll. Oh no, hang on, it needs to be a bit closer. And so it makes me laugh to look at it.
Rally up, rally up! Somebody cover the civilian six, let's move!
This moment was actually like we were all just getting to know each other because it was quite early in our filming schedule, and it wasn't this amazing company of people from, Samuel L. Jackson and John Goodman and John C. Reilly and Brie Larson. I remember she had just come from the Toronto Film Festival with her film Room, which, she went on to win an Academy Award for. And John C., he was like mother hen in a way.
Mother! Son!
That was an amazing day, actually. I think when John C. throws me the katana, that was our first day together on set. And I had just met him. Yeah, it was very exciting and obviously a huge piece of action. I remember the day we did it. Everything is real except for the monsters themselves. And we'd set off these canisters of green gas. And I was actually, on the terrain, and we had a bit of choreography. And it was so thrilling to learn it because Conrad, it's my character's name, James Conrad, is a special forces soldier in the truest sense of the word, in that he's just incredibly capable. There was definitely some training involved. It was some very intense physical stuff. Bye, Kong. It's good to see you. The whole point of this film is that it's about life can be hard, and life is often, for many of us, a struggle, and we all have to overcome obstacles in our lives, and our lives are sometimes full of loss and grief, but that our lives are also full of joy, and every seemingly ordinary life is magic. And actually, in the last hours of our lives, it may be that the things we remember are the people we loved, and the experiences we shared. And the whole point of this sequence was that you meet Chuck, and he, in the external world, seems to be an ordinary guy, Mr. Businessman, wearing a business suit on his way to the business conference, staying at the business hotel, and nobody would even turn to look. He seems unremarkable. But actually, he contains this internal world of infinite possibility and joy, and he was a dancer at high school and middle school, and that there's suddenly, he doesn't know this, but his life will end in 6 months' time. And at this moment of complete spontaneity on a Thursday afternoon, he decides to put his briefcase down and start dancing. And it's the freest and the most committed and the most passionate and the most joyful that he's ever been. There are a few signature moves of mine which is going to sneak their way in there. But the thing that was new for me was learning all the things I didn't know how to do, like learning the bossa nova and the polka and swing and jazz and salsa and the Charleston and the moonwalk as well, which is trickier than you might think out on the asphalt in Alabama. I had amazing teachers in Mandy Moore and Stephanie Powell and Jonathan Redavid. They were the most joyful, inspiring kind of guides, really, that kind of re-taught me the language of dance, that dancing is something we instinctively know how to do. We come into the world as children. Pretty sure every child dances, and it's like a language we forget somehow. And it's like Chuck is remembering how much he loves it and how happy it makes him, and hopefully that joy is something that like transmits and connects to everyone around him. But it was just so, it was such a fun sequence to shoot. And honestly, it's something I never thought I would get to do. Like when I was growing up, I was such an admirer. Gene Kelly movies and the Fred and Ginger movies. And I was a teenager in the 90s, and there was like so much dance in pop culture. And around that time, I suppose it was like MTV, and there was a lot of break dancing, and people, like all the music videos were full of these incredible like different moves, and that Fatboy Slim video with Christopher Walken, and who was also a trained dancer. Getting to do this was something I never thought I would get to do. I'm so happy that I was given the opportunity.
I used to carve toys for Lucille. Make little trinkets to keep her happy.
Were you alone here in the attic all the time?
Father was always traveling. The family fortune didn't lose itself.
God, this is going back in time for me. I haven't seen this film for a while, and It was a very meaningful experience to make it. Guillermo del Toro asked me to do it, and just the privilege of working with him, he's such a master filmmaker. He knows, his knowledge of cinema and of his craft is total. Everything you see in every frame of his films has been very carefully chosen and very carefully imagined. And he understands story at such a deep level. He's such a deep admirer of literature and classical literature, but he also understands cinematography and props and art direction and costume and tone, and to be near his authority was a real education and a real honor. We shot the film at, I think, what was then the biggest soundstage in North America, which was Pinewood in Toronto. The house in the film is called Allerdale Hall, built on 3 or 4 stories, and the most elaborate set I have ever seen in my entire life. It was a real place as far as I could tell. And getting to live inside it and be inspired by it, there was nothing left to the imagination. You had it. If you had a prop, it was tangibly in your hands. I remember there was a wall of plaster by the wooden staircase, and there were cracks in the plaster, and from a certain angle on the landing, if you looked at the plaster, the cracks spelt out the word fear.
Was it ever creepy filming in this house?
No, because it was actually because Guillermo's sets are so full of laughter and they're so full of joy. So you just feel like you're all on this adventure together to try and tell this story. And Gothic romance was such a curious genre because it was, at the time, very rebellious and very new in that often the archetypes were that a young, innocent, open-hearted heroine was drawn to a tall, dark stranger with a house on the hill.
And you were the tall, dark stranger?
I was the tall, dark stranger. Do you know what, very recently, we just did a season 2 of The Night Manager. We were filming on location in England. I drove up and parked my car and somebody came to meet me and they were so enthusiastic. And I thought, you know, this is a kind of extraordinary hospitality. And then as he was showing me to my room, he said, I just have to tell you, I became a night manager in hotels because I saw you in The Night Manager. And I was like, okay.
What the hell's that? What is this? What is this?
Corky, sit down. It is for another table, sir.
I tell you what it is, my naughty little greaseball. This is a lobster sodding salad.
Yes, sir.
It was so interesting. So the whole point of this scene was that it's actually that there's a moment of completely spontaneous chaos. Corky, so brilliantly played by Tom Hollander, knows he's kind of being replaced, that actually he's losing favour at the right-hand side of the boss and is furious about it. Roper, as played by the great, the one and only Hugh Laurie, sees Pine smooth over the cracks, and that he does it with a kind of effortlessness and charm and competence that thinks, actually, this guy is such a calm hand on the tiller. He's such a, he's so switched on. I really should make him my right hand. And then at the table next door, the people who are kind of witnessing this violence are very disturbed by it. The leading guest was John le Carré, who took his role very seriously.
So sorry.
Oh, dear man, what the hell's going on?
Andrew Birch.
I must apologise for my friend's misbehaviour.
I think you bloody well should.
Allow me to buy you lunch. So, as that scene takes about maybe 25 seconds in the show, but actually on the ice, John le Carré was so brilliant at improvising that every time I tried to say, allow me to buy you lunch, every time I tried to smooth things over, he would say, well, I don't think you should buy me lunch. I think your man there's very distressed. What are you going to do about it? And I'd say, don't worry about him. He's going to be absolutely fine. We'll take care of him. He doesn't look fine. He looks awful. He's sitting on the. My companion's very disturbed by it. What are you going to say to her? What can I get you? Can I get you a plate of oysters? Can I get you? I was just like, how can I just tie this up and wrap it? and he was such a powerful actor. He's so inventive in his improvisation that he just wouldn't let me rest. He wouldn't let me stop. And actually, the take went on for about 10 minutes, and we cut. And I kind of failed to do the job of pacifying him. He was so mischievous and so playful. He knew what he was doing. And all of that stuff is improvised. It's such a happy memory for me. John le Carré has since passed away. And the night before we started, we went out for dinner. And he said this extraordinary thing. He said, well, of course, Tom, as you may have guessed, Jonathan Pine is me. And now he must be you. Take it on. Take possession of this. Don't feel it belongs to me. Make it belong to you. It's really unusual for an author of such stature and such esteem. He didn't need to say that. And it was very, very generous of him. It's been remarkable watching everything back. My thought is how young I look in these clips. that these were made when I was a younger man. But that's okay. Each project is such a unique and specific chapter of my life. You know, every time you go to work to make a film, usually it's going to take 6 months of your life, and you remember that. That's half a year, or sometimes a whole year. And so the experience is so much more than the 2 hours traffic of what the film ends up being. Because what I'm remembering is all these people I met and all the friendships I made and the challenges we overcame. It's like it really is like watching whole chapters of my life. So it's been a lovely honor.